G'day everyone and welcome to another rcheli.au heli build, fly and review. So today we are going to build the all new OMPHobby M6, one of the new 600 size helicopters that have come out in very recent times. I was quite excited actually when OMP announced this, and I thought, I have not seen a 600 size heli come out for quite a while. Like 550s, 580s, plenty of those, but a 600, I have not seen one of those for a very long time. Well, to be perfectly frank with you, I've never seen a 600 size released since I've entered the hobby anyway, but you know, they were older, but the 600s are back, so I really wanted to try this out. And I've already got a couple of the 500 and the 580 size helis, and I thought, yep, let's go for the 600 size. So yes, I put a pre-order in as soon as they came out at Mad for Heli, and I said, Dave, I really want to get one of these. And he said, Carl, I'd love for you to do a review on it. That would be fantastic. So just arrived the other day, so I'm very keen to build it. I also, when I spec'd up this heli, I got this Tribunus 3 150 amp. I'm running the same ESC in my Eel Goblin Pro, and I'm very happy with it. So easy to install, reliable. I really can't say much more. It is a fantastic ESC, and it looks trick too. Now, this HK5 motor here, I went something a little different this time, and I've pulled it off the box because I can never remember what it is. Anyway, so it's a HK5, it's a 4030 715 kV. And I'm sure you're all wondering, Carl, what on earth did you get what on earth could you be powering 715 kV? It's a very odd spec, that's for sure. So this heli is going to be powered by 10S. So, you know, I've got 6S, I've got 12S, I have played with 8S in the past with a Goblin 570, and that was pretty cool. But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be doing any hard, punchy sort of stuff with this heli. Well, I don't intend to, we'll see how it goes, but I'm really keen to see what a 10S would go in a large heli that's not quite full size. So anyway, a 10S pack is going behind that powertrain. I've also tried out something new this time as well, and we'll see how they go. KST make this really cool half-size servo, or low profile servo anyway. So it's quite small, very lightweight. They're an X20 1806 4-pole brushless servo. So I'm really keen to see what they're like. Yeah, so that's all the main components that are going in it. So I'm going to unbox this because I've been itching to unbox this thing. So David said, oh, have you unboxed it and had a look at the canopy yet? The canopy's beautiful. And I just said, oh man, I've been so busy. And he just said, oh, I said, I'm going to wait until I do. This is going to be a very authentic unboxing. I still have not seen this. So anyway, without further ado, let's unbox it and see what's inside. Okay, so we're greeted with not very much at all, just black. There's nothing that sort of like grabs you like an SAB or that does, but hey, that's all right. I'm not here to compare this against SAB. Let's, I'm pretty sure I know what's in this big one, so I'm gonna leave the best till last. So I'm gonna pull out this box on the end here, and let's open it up. No tape on it. Okay, so we have an M6 blade holder. We have heaps of other parts. Oh, this is cool. Like the M4 Max, it's got this nice little etched M6 plate here for where the receiver would go. Here's all our pitch link, the washout arms, Rototech tails, of course. No surprises what colour my canopy is going to be. The solar yellow. We have blade grips in here. We have the swash plate. Yeah, pretty cool looking swash plate. We'll have a look at that later. There's our tail casing with the belt. Oh, oh wow. Look at this big main gear. 121T, 121 tooth main gear. And support bearings. That looks like an ESC plate. All other cool stuff in there. So we'll just leave them in the box for the moment. I'm going to put that over here. And I'll pull this one out of the back here, and I would hazard a guess that we're going to have some nice Rotatech Ultimate 610 blades. And like the M4 Max, the beautiful purple, almost like a harlequin, I'm trying to think of the name of the other thing, holographic effect. Yeah, very, very nice. So I really like those on the M4 Max. They're very, very nice blade. What else is in here? Of course, we have a tail boom, beautiful carbon fiber tail boom with OMPHobby M6, and the carbon rod is in there as well. We're done with that. And now, this thing that David's been teasing me about, he says that these canopies are so beautiful. Oh, it's still teasing me because there's a big black bit of foam on top. Hello, gorgeous. I'm going to tease you now. Landing skids, all white landing skids. They will look very, very nice. Battery tray, we've got, oh yes, 2 battery trays. Excellent, thank you OMP, that's great. Side frames, big OMP engraved on them. We have a few more brackets, a few more carbon frames, all that stuff there. And check it out. Just pull it out of the bag and look at it in all its glossy beauty. Whoa, look at that. You know, I was looking at the orange, and I still think the orange would look amazing, but I'm so glad I bought the yellow. It just really, really pops. And, oh, look at this. The quick release mounts are already on. They're actually even riveted in place by the look of it. Yeah, there's no glue, there's no nothing. So yeah, oh. David, you were right, my friend. It looks amazing. Love it. They've done such a great job on that. If there was something that I didn't like about the M7, I didn't really like the design of their canopy that much. There was something about this bit here. I don't know, just a personal thing. You know, I'm not knocking it, not judging it, but that was just me. But they've knocked it out of the park with this one. I think it looks incredible. So I'm going to close this box up. Ooh, but I have noticed one thing. Hang on, I've got to look. Got to make sure, hang on. Just make sure I haven't missed it, because I'd look like a bit of a goose if I haven't. If I have, I mean. No. Okay, this seems to be a bit of a trend that is coming out in more Heli. So like the Tron review that I did last time, no printed manual comes with this. Now I do understand that manufacturers are trying to keep their costs down and things like that, but personally I prefer one, because not everybody has a laptop that they can just have running there in the work area and keeping an eye on things. So you've either got to have a laptop there where it's running all the time, or you got to go and print the whole manual out. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. Anyway, it is what it is. But look, what I have seen so far looks super, super impressive. So I'm going to start laying everything out. Fortunately, they have everything labeled on the bag. So I'm just looking at it from the box there. I can see an M611, M623. So it's all going to be sequential. So I'm going to lay them all out on the deck here, and then I'm going to go and download the manual, read it all up, and then I'm going to come back and we'll start building it. Let's go. So I've gone through the manual and it actually looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with how it's all laid out. It seems to be detailed quite well. So all the page numbers seem to line up with all of the, so this says M6-1. So yeah, very, very sort of similar experience to the OMP4 Max, but this manual is a lot clearer, I think. A little bit more colourful too. So I'm going to start now with bag M6-1, which is on page 1 of the manual. So page 1 actually starts like quite a few pages down, but before it, it's got things like all of your possible pinion ratios and the table of contents and some pretty pictures of what the M6 will look like when it's finished. But apart from that, it's all really, really good. I quite like what I see here. So I'm going to get all of these bits and pieces out of this packet. We've got these nice carbon side frames. And what do we have here? Looks to be a motor mount. Open that up. And lastly, we have a whole heap of screws. So I'm going to take all of these out of here and put them here because, as you know, whenever we start a build, we want a sacrificial bag. Because on that particular bag, come out of there, we want to put our thread locker on there. So I'm going to put a nice big blob of Loctite 243. Let the build begin. So there's page 1 done. We've got our main support plate there with where our main shaft goes through, and the bearing just pushes in there. These couple of pieces that stick out here, I assume they're canopy supports and main carbon side frames. Page number 2, we're looking now at the servo rack assembly and canopy mount and servo rack assembly. Just be careful when you're assembling this. So I've put this bearing in the top plate, and it's pretty easy to see which one the bearing goes in. The one that you can see that there's holes in the center, but then there's also a set of holes here on the outside that goes on the bottom and doesn't need a bearing in it. But what I did find is that in this packet, we have 6 bolts that are 6mm long, and then there's a couple in here that are 7mm long. Don't mix them up. Make sure that you have a ruler or something like that to check them. And there's our frame. We have our canopy mounts that are attached to the sides, and also the servo rack that's screwed in there. One thing that I noticed that I'm not used to is this servo rack is attached to this main chassis plate with 3mm socket heads, which, you know, it's very rare that you find on a lot of models these days to use one of that large. Normally I'm used to 2.5s, but yeah, 3mm. Yeah, they are a decent sized bolt that's gone in there. So it's nice and solid. That's not going anywhere. So that's page 2 done. So we'll go to page 3, and page 3 is putting in the ESC mount. So let's get bag number 3 for page 3. It's going together very, very nicely. I'm quite impressed with how it's going together so far. So yeah, so we'll put this together and put it on. That's page 3 done. ESC mounts in. I love how they put the OMPHobby engraved into the ESC mount. Looks pretty cool. Page 4 is putting our main gear. So that would be this big main gear here that has a number of teeth that's etched into the top of it. We also have the front sprocket for our tail belt that we need to put together. And there is also a bearing support in here as well. So we'll put all that together now. There's our main gear with the one-way bearing all installed, and the front tail shaft, tail rotor, front pulley done. And there's a little shim that needs to go on top here. So that's page 4 done. So we will now get bag 5 for page 5. A lot of these bags don't have little snap seals, so make sure you got a little box cutter or some sort of knife to take these apart. So in bag number 5 we have our main shaft, and it's got a nice, almost like a blued coating on this, and it's very light too for a main shaft. Very light. Yeah. Quite interesting, 180mm long. So it's got a chamfer on one end and it's squared off on the other. So you can see that, and they actually list that quite clearly in the manual. So it looks like, yeah, so the chamfered side needs to go through the top here and into the main gear, which makes sense because you want that chamfer on there to make it easier to penetrate the bearing. And this little bag here, this will be the bolt and nut that holds our front tail belt sprocket on. So let's have a look at this. So this needs to go in here like so. And then we'll put this shim and then the main gear and then the sprocket goes on the other end. So all we have to do is make sure we put this on the right way. Okay, so we make sure that the hole where the bolt's got to go through is on the underside. So I'm going to slip this in underneath here. And now I'm just going to give this a little tap. Just going to tap it down until it comes flush. And now I can rotate this until I see the hole appear. It's not appearing yet, so I'll probably have to go a little further. So it's just coming into view now, but what I'm going to do, because it's not quite there, I'm just going to stick this driver through here as a bit of a locator. There we go. And then I'm going to get my 2.5mm driver, put that in from this end. Lovely. And then I'll get the nut, put that on the other side and do it up. Now it's a nylock nut, so you don't need to worry about any sort of thread locker or anything on that at all. Put that in there, do that up until it's firm. And there it is. That was easy, very easy. And our one-way bearing works too, as you would expect. Okay, so now what we need to do is, there is no bag 6 because this is now showing you the other side frames where they need to go on from here. Anyway, we'll put them on now. Before I get going in this, I just want to clarify something. So even though the bag was marked page 7, page 6 and 7 is actually applicable to this bag. So maybe OMP could have actually labeled that bag M6-6/7 or something like that. Anyway, something to be aware of. But the other thing I wanted to make a special note of is these other carbon side frames. I call them a intermediary frame maybe, I don't know, because we've got these upper frames and then we've got these intermediate frames that sort of go like this. Yeah, they go like that. And then we've got these cool looking lower frames which go on there as well. And they got OMP etched in there, which looks really nice. The bit that I wanted to point out is on top part of these frames here, they're countersunk, and then there's these little countersunk nuts. Well, they're called countersunk nuts, but I suppose they've got a thread in them, but they just look like this. Yeah, I don't even know what you call them, but they say to use a little bit of super glue or sonoacrylate in there. So my favorite Loctite black super glue is what I use. Doesn't quite go off as quickly as normal super glue, and it's almost, it's not as runny either. It's almost like a gel, and it's apparently got a little bit of rubber in it as well, which makes it a little stronger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these little countersunk nuts into these frames and then proceed to put them on. There's also this carbon plate that needs to sit in here as well. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do now. I've just finished page 8. I'm sorry, I just went ahead and did that by myself but I'm sure you don't care about whether you see me installing it. But one thing I wanted to point out was this combination Flybarless mounting plate and the hardware for mounting the tail boom. Now, pay close attention to that. There's some orientation of where each one of these brackets needs to go and which side they need to go to as well, and this little insert, that plastic insert that goes in here too. But the thing that I did want to show you, which I find they could have done a lot better job in the manual on this, is these rubber dampeners. Now you'll see here that I've put them inside, so the grommet actually sits inside the plate, which all grommets do, but they don't call it a grommet, they call it a rubber damper bushing. And after you've been building helis a little while, you'd probably take one look at that and you'd realize what it was. But I flicked through the manual a little bit and I'd have found the picture in the next page actually, and you zoom in on it and you can actually see that it's within the plate. But here, where the step is to show you how, like this is how you assemble it, it's just got them sitting above the plate, and you would think without knowing too much else that, oh yeah, I just put that little gold insert in there and put the bolts through and happy days. But no, these, you have to put that rubber grommet in first, or the rubber damper bushing as they call it. The other piece that I wanted to talk about as well is this silver plate that I've got mounted on the underside of it. Now it's optional. It says it's an inertial mass damper. Now, unless it's stated somewhere else in the manual, you would think it would be here on this page to specify what it's actually for and what sort of experience you should expect by having it fitted or not. There's nothing there, which is a little disappointing that it's not here, but this is revision 0 of the manual. They may fix that up later, but that's room for improvement. Now, I fitted that to this because my experience with these types of things in the past is with the Kraken 3 blade that I used to have. I think in the early Krakens, SAB were going through some issues of vibration, particularly with that model Kraken, especially the 3 blade. And they did 3 different variants that you could mount the Flybarless mounting plate, and you could direct mount it to the transmission. You could mount it off the frames, which is what I ended up doing. You could have it dampened, undampened, and then you could also have this big counterweight that would sit underneath it as well. And when you need to go putting weights like that, I honestly think, my personal opinion is that something's been overlooked in the design, or basically they got to the point where they were prototyping and testing and they found this issue that caused vibration or whatever it was, and they couldn't really get around it unless it needed a major rework in the tooling. So to overcome that, they put in this little counterweight that sits underneath the Flybarless to smooth things out a bit. Now, this weight, it weighs 27 grams. So it's a little bit, it's not significant, but it is still weight. But exactly what it would do in the fly, I have no idea. The disappointing thing about how they've mounted this as well is that because your Flybarless, the double-sided tape is going to sit straight over the top of it, if you wanted to try it with and without, well, guess what you're gonna have to do? You're gonna have to wreck all of your tape, and you have to take it off and then reapply your tape, and and then you may want to put it back on because you don't like it without it, or whatever that may be. So yeah, I think they could have done a better job with that. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna see what it's like after I fly, and if I find that it has room for improvement, I might muck around with it later on. But anyway, that's just something that I wanted to share about that, rather than go through that, watch me assemble all of this, which is not really exciting anyway. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to page 9, and this is where things start getting a little bit exciting. In the manual, it's got a picture of the Heli inverted, so it looks a little bit easier to see. Let's just call it that. And what we're going to do is we're going to install the tail belt tensioner mechanism. So we've got an idler pulley and a pulley on this side, which has a little bit of movement here, and a nice little adjuster on the side. I'm actually quite keen to see how all this works. I haven't seen this on another Heli before, so this is pretty cool. And then we're also going to put in the mount, the Flybarless mount with the tail boom bracket in there as well. So let's do it. There we are, it's all installed. There's this tensioner that I was talking about. So what that does is that it's got a little left-hand thread on the spigot that goes on the inside there. So we basically turn that and it pushes against, I don't know how well you can see that, but there's that little idler pulley that's on, yeah, there. It pushes that in so we can tension up the belt. Now I've already read ahead and seen how we tension the belt, and basically what we do is we without any tension on the tensioner, we pull this out until it's just basically takes up the slack, and then we lock up the boom, and then we adjust this little screw here on the side by hand to get the correct tension on the belt. So I thought that was quite neat of OMP. It's yeah, quite a neat little design, rather than trying to, like SAB does. I've never been a fan of theirs. How you got to walk that rear bracket on the tail. Is, yeah, not a fan. Anyway, but that's another issue. So yeah, please pay attention that we have the 2 bolts that go down on the bottom side here. These are a lot longer than the other 6, so the 2 up here and the 4 on this side. And then of course the 2 bolts that go in this side on the idler pulleys for the tail belt, that they are longer on this side, obviously, to take up for the tensioner. So yeah, anyway, I really like how it's coming together. So let's go ahead and have a look. Oh, hello. We are now going to do our cyclic servos. So I can pull these bad boys out of their boxes. So remember I was saying at the start of the video that I thought I'd try out these low profile KST cyclics. Ooh, they're cute. Haven't seen a servo quite like that before. Check it out. Very neat, actually. Yeah, so very cute. And yeah, quite light. Anyway, so I'm going to mount these on the servo rack right now. And there's our cyclic servos, these half-height KSTs. I quite like them, especially the color scheme. It goes really well with all of the carbon accents and the 3D performance on there. The black and white is looking really, really nice. And yeah, the lack of bulk in here just makes them so easy to install. So I'm super keen to see how these things are going to respond and how they're going to perform. But on paper, there's no reason why they shouldn't perform as good as just about anything else on the market. All right, so what I'm going to do later on is I'm going to center these servos up like I normally do. I'm going to plug these into the Flybarless just loosely and set them on the tuning parameter so it centers all the servos, and then I'll disconnect them so I know where they are and then put the servo horns on later. Anyway, so I am going to, oh, here we go, things are going to get interesting now. The tail gearbox assembly, or as we commonly call the tail case. So that's assembling the pulley within the tail case, the bearings, the axle, and putting that into the boom and the tail belt idler assembly. So there's a little idler that goes on top of the tail belt rear sprocket at the back. So yeah, it looks pretty straightforward, and then yeah, anyway, let's do it. There it is. So we've got a boom now, belts through. There's our tail casing in the end and the idler pulley there on the top. Pretty neat actually. Yeah, relatively easy to put in. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, our tail pitch slider is the next one to go on, which is on page 12. So we have a bag here with a 12 on it. We won't need that bag anymore. Let's pull everything out. Yeah, the usual bits and pieces that you would expect for a tail slider. Okay, I'm going to do that now. And there's our bell crank and pitch slider, all sitting on there very, very nicely. That was fairly easy to do. One of the easier ones I've done actually. Yeah, I was quite impressed. Okay, ooh, tail rotor hub assembly on page 13. So we're going to put on the hub, which goes on the end, and the rotor spindle that goes through the edge for our blade grips. So yeah, it looks pretty standard. One of the things that I've noticed in this manual though, is that unlike other manuals I've seen, the thrust bearing, or as they call it, the axial bearing, they talk about the cage and which way the cage should go. So I've always just looked at the drawing very intently and seeing if I can see which way that they go. But they actually specify here, they say the open side of the axial bearing cage must face outwards towards the rotor blade. So I thought that was quite interesting that they specified that, because I haven't seen that before. Anyway, I'm going to go and assemble that now. I'm just about to put the thrust washers inside the tail grips. Now, one of the things that I've noticed in the manual here on page 13 it talks about, as I was saying earlier, which way the cage, the open side of the cage of the thrust bearing needed to face. And the one thing that I've always seen in every manual, it says that both of these washers that the thrust bearing runs inside, one has a inside diameter slightly larger than the other. Now, it doesn't say that on this, and I thought, oh, this is very unusual. It's not specified. So what I did is I went through the manual to find the section where it talks about assembling the main blade grips. And it specifies it there on page 25. It says the inner is the larger. So a little point to note there. I'm sure OMP will put that in a future revision of the manual, but in this case, it's not specified. As I've mentioned in another one of my videos, to easily find it, we've already got our shaft here in this little head block. So just put the washer on there and just give it a little wiggle. That one's got a little bit there. I would expect more, so I'm going to get the other one and just test it. And yep, that's got heaps. So we know this one is the one that goes to the inside. And something else I've shown you on a previous video, easiest way to set these up, get your driver, put it through the middle, put the washer on the inside, then we'll get our thrust washer, and it says that the open side of the cage must face outwards. So I've got the open side, and I'll put that in there. And then the other washer, make sure you get the little race that runs in the bearing, and put that on the inside, like so. And then we have a washer that goes over that, and then a sealed bearing which goes over the other side. So all we have to do now is take our driver out, and then we can just push this in and push it all together. There we have it. There's our tail rotor hub. That's all together. Now what do we got to do? So that was page 13. 14. So we just basically put this on the end of the tail rotor. Oh wow, look at that. Page 14 has a bag with one bolt and one nut in it. Wow, gee, OMP, I think you could have made your process a little bit more efficient there. Anyway, oh, too funny. All right, so we have a circle on one end, a little notch on the other. So what we will do is we'll put this on this end, and we'll put the bolt in from this side. There you are. Nylock nut, so we don't need to worry about any Loctite. Let's get this in a spot where I can access this a little better. There's our tail rotor, all done. All the bell cranks all connected, and our blade grips are all moving with the pitch, which is nice. And now, page 14 isn't done yet. Here comes the cool part. We actually got to put this in the airframe. There we go, booms in, everything's on the on the front sprocket there and all on the idlers. Now, one of the things that I found, the boom doesn't slide in and out that easily, and there's no mention of grease or anything like they did on the M4 Max anyway. So what I did is I loosened this bolt off this front clamp as much as I could, and then I got a flat screwdriver and just put it in between the slot here and just gave it a little twist just to open the clamp up a little bit, and then I could slide that in quite nicely. So that's just a little tip there for getting that in. Anyway, but main thing is that it's in. We can rotate this clockwise, that goes counterclockwise, and there's no binding, there's no weird noises, so that's a good thing. Anyway, so let's have a look at what's next. Main shaft support installation. Okay, so, oh, this is lower. Oh, there's a bearing block, cool. So there's a bearing block that goes underneath for support, and then there is there's like a little collar that goes on the top to stop the shaft floating up and down. All right, so we are on page 15, so that would mean page 15. Wow, that was easy. That was really, really easy. Oh, wow. Love it when they put good design into things like that. Okay, so here's the part now where I was talking about earlier, the belt tensioning procedure. So I looked into this a little earlier and I thought, oh, gee, this looks really, really easy. So I've sort of jumped ahead a little bit when I was putting the boom in. So basically it says to fully unscrew the belt tensioner knob, which it is, and then we need to pull the boom back until the belt has no slack remaining, but no further. So basically just pull it back until it's just there and then leave it. So it should still be quite loose as it is now, but nothing else. And then we need to tighten the two boom clamping screws on the right of the lower side frame. And then confirm it's all good. It's that simple. All right, so as I said in step one, we need to fully unscrew the belt tensioner knob. So I've done that, and you can see the little spigot is sitting out outside. And then it says to pull the tail boom back until the belt has no slack remaining, but no further. So because I was saying before this, it's not that simple. We need to make sure that this bolt is well and truly loose. So I've taken it right out. And then I'm gonna get my flat screwdriver and I'm gonna put this in here and just give a little twist. And then I'm going to just use this hand to just squeeze the boom. So I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to be watching the belt as I move this, and I can see it coming up. And then, yeah, basically I've got, it's all the slack's been taken up, but that's it. As soon as I saw the slack stop moving, I've stopped. And now what we need to do is do up this bolt, or both bolts actually. So I'm going to do this one up now. Okay, so they're nice and firm. And now it says to return the tensioner system to its neutral position. And I think that's a pretty poor description, but anyway. But when you zoom in on it, you can see that the little spigot on the end is basically flush with the end. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to turn this clockwise, and I'm just going to keep winding that in until it's flush, which it pretty much is there. And I'm going to see what my belt tension is like. Ooh, pretty good. I like it. It's not ridiculously tight, but it's definitely not loose. So I'm quite happy with that. Okay. Can't complain too much about the instructions if it works the first time. All right. Landing gear, excellent. So we can now get the landing gear on so it can sit flush, flat, all by itself. Okay, so skids are on. I haven't put the plugs in yet. I'm going to leave them till later because we're going to have to put a bit of glue on there to hold them in. And I've put the set screws in at the moment, but they're not, I haven't bitten them into the pipes yet because I want to probably just play around a little bit with the length, because on page 18, I noticed that that's when we put our tail fin on. So once the tail fin's on, it'll be sitting nice and upright, and then I can get everything set up later. So that's just a personal preference about how I like to do things. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to do the tail fin, and we'll put the tail servo on as well. There we are, tail fin is on. Unfortunately, I've made a bit of a mistake. So I went to put on the tail servo, and yeah, I've ordered the wrong servo. It's meant to be a full-size servo. Anyway, part of the hobby. It'll teach me to pay a bit more attention next time. Anyway, not all's lost. I'm going to get on to Mad for Heli. I'm going to order a new servo, but I'm going to continue the build. I'll keep going, and I'll finish the servo off later. Okay, so we'll go on to the next step. Ooh, we'll put on the pinion and the motor. That's always an exciting part. I absolutely love the tins that Scorpion pack their gear in. It's just so, oh, it's like they've got this attention to detail on every aspect. Their motors look good, they perform great, and I just love the unboxing experience in this lovely metal tin that they come in. So good. And here's this lovely sized motor for my 600 size helicopter running on, do you remember what batteries I'm running this on? 10S. We're running 10S on this one, which is a bit unusual. But hey, I like to give new things a go. That's the engineer in me. Anyway, so 40-30, 715 kV. I'm just about to bolt down this mount onto the motor, and it's quite thick. I mean, I'll just get that up closely. You can see the thickness of that there. It's yeah, quite. Yeah, the depth of it is quite big compared to what I've typically seen. Now, in the manual, it says, if using a non-sunny sky motor, ensure the motor screws do not make contact with the motor windings. Now, that's pretty important. Now, what I found is the bolts, as they warned you, the bolts are quite long, and yeah, they need to be quite long to get through this really thick plate. But when I just put it in and then just did it up just by hand, it gets almost there until about the last couple of threads, and then you can feel it hit the bottom of a bit of tape or whatever it is that's underneath the motor. So that's the indicator, don't use those bolts. So I'm going to use the bolts that came with the Scorpion motor. So they're about, if I get my ruler, and I'll tell you how long they are. So what comes with the Scorpion motor are 10 millimeters long. And the ones that come with the kit, 12 millimeters long. So it's only just a bit more, but it's no good. Anyway, I'm going to use the Scorpion bolts. I've just put in the set screws that go in the pinion. One thing to note is that both the set screws are two different lengths. So this may be obvious, but maybe not. The longer one is the one that goes in through the hole, which goes onto the flat. That's ground onto the shaft. So it needs to be a bit longer to go a little further. And then the shorter one goes onto the rounded side of the shaft because it won't go as deep. But anyway, that all goes in. Make sure that when you put the pinion on, it goes all the way down to the depth of the shaft, right down to the bottom, and then lock it up. And then it's just a matter of, we get this bracket here and put this on like so. And look at that, the holes even line up. And then we just put these couple of set screws, cup head screws in, and we're all done. There it is, there's our motor and our pinion, all the brackets, all there. That was a pretty easy, yeah, very, very simple to do. I'm quite impressed. Yeah, very, very nice. Anyway, we'll put those bolts over there because I might use them another day. Make sure you always get yourself a little box, like a little servo box or something. Hey, even a scorpion tin would be really, really good. And put all of the leftover stuffs when you do your heli builds, because I tell you what, these things do come in handy down the track when you're like, you put in a heli together and then you, don't ask me how I know this, you'll be putting something together and then something just falls off and it bounces and it's so small and you can never ever find the thing. Well, you go to your tin and like, oh, there's another one. So yeah, very, very handy. Keep them in something like that. But they're just so pretty, aren't they? You just don't want to use them for something like that. Never mind. Anyway, enough rambling on. What do we got to do now? Oh, well, we got to put the motor in. So we need to get bag number 20 for page number 20. And it's just a matter of mounting it in. So we push the pinion all the way against the main gear, then back it off again so that it has 0.05 of a millimeter to 0.1 of a millimeter backlash. Tighten the M3 by 16 screws first and the M3 by 8 screws last. And verify that the mesh didn't change. You should feel the backlash when moving the gear back and forth, but it should not visibly moved. A little bit of subjective sort of terminology in there for my liking. Anyway, but I'll follow those instructions as best I can, but I am used to setting up backlash by just using a bit of paper and feeding it through there and getting it right, so you only just got that little bit there. But anyway, we'll follow their instructions and we'll see how it goes. So I just want to show you what I found here. So getting this backlash is probably a bit easier than it seems. So what I'm doing here is, I might just turn this around so you can see it a little better, is I'm holding the motor here and then I'm basically pushing this up against the main gear, and then I'm just rocking this. I just move it back and forth so the teeth have a good chance to mesh in. And then I hold it, just hold the motor so it can't move. And now I'm moving the main gear, trying to move the main gear back and forth, and I can't feel any play in there at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let go of the motor and I'm just gonna rock it back and forth and then try it again and just not hold pressure against it. Just stop it from moving so you can actually use the teeth to push the motor away from the pinion, away from the main gear. So I can't feel it there, so I'm just going to put less force on it going that way, but I'm still holding the motor from rotating. So I'm just going to do this until, yep, there it goes. So I can just feel it, just feel a tiny, tiny little bit in there. So that's good. So then it says to tighten the M3 by 16 millimeter bolts. So I'm just going to tighten these up now. Just firm anyway, I'm not going to tighten them too tight, just firm. And verify that the mesh didn't change. So I'm just going to hold the motor again. And I've just got a little bit there, just ever so tiny. I'm pretty happy with that. And now I'm going to lock everything up. So I'm going to do the bottom bolts first. So I'll do them up nice and tight. Not too tight because they're only 3 millimeter bolts. You don't want to lock them up so tight that you snap the bolt. Anyway, so that's the bottom 2 done. Now I'm going to do the top 4. And that's it. Mesh is done. Just feel it. Can't really see the main gear move. I'm pretty happy with that. job done. One bit that is concerning me though is how much room I've got to feed ESC wires through here. But anyway, I've had a bit of a look about how they recommend to mount it, and yeah, it probably wouldn't have been my preference. It's this lower plate here that's going to foul bringing the wires in through the front, which is the way I prefer to go. It's going to have to go through the top here. But anyway, we will make it work. Like I always say, this is the fun part of the hobby. You can look at these things and you have to use your brain and work out how you can do this. And this is why I say to people, anybody who's interested in getting their children into a life of STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, this is just the perfect way of giving a real world life application to all the theory that you would learn in school and at university. You can get into all this really good stuff before you even hit the workforce and get a really great appreciation for it. So now we're up to the carbon tail push rod, or yeah, carbon tail control rod carbon tube, they call it here. So it looks like it's the same deal as you would do anything anywhere else, or almost. There was a Heli I built recently, but that was all, I think that was in the Tron actually, or was it the, no, sorry, it was the Eel Goblin KSE, where they were already there. But every other heli that I've always built, you have to use two-part epoxy adhesive to put the ends on, and then we make sure that it's the right length. So what they're saying here is from the outer edge, including the ball link screwed onto the end, is 710 millimeters. So I'm going to do a check of the carbon rod with the associated hardware to make sure that's what it will come to, and then I will glue those on. Oh wow, perfect, 710 millimeters. I love it when things just come together. All right, I'm gonna mix up some two-part epoxy, the normal Sally's Araldite 5-minute that I've used in all my other videos, and I'm gonna put it in. There's a little socketed cap screw that goes in the end there, lock it up, and I'll leave it, and then we'll go on to the next bit. So the carbon rod's done. I'm actually going to put that on later, but I've just gone through a few pages and we're up to putting the swash plate on. So there's a nice exploded diagram of what the swash plate looks like if you ever have to pull it apart and service it, or you know, if it's damaged, you know how it goes together. But anyway, but there it is. It's all assembled. It's all ready to go. But the one thing it doesn't have, which is most brands out there anyway, well, I haven't seen one yet that doesn't have this, is the balls need to be put in and Loctited in, obviously. So I'm going to do that now. And the other thing that we need to do as part of this is our servo linkage rods. So that's the same as any other heli that you put together. You've always got to put these together as well. So they give you a measurement. It says approximately 75.3. 0.3? 75 or 75.5, but 0.3? Oh well, 75.3 it is. We will do them up to that. So we'll put these ball joint socket, oh, Z and F, okay. Oh, okay, right. Okay, something to watch out for that I've just noticed here is the ball links that go on the end of the rods. They're different on both ends. So every other brand of heli I've ever built, they've been the same. Why on earth they would put on two different ones, I'm not sure. I'm not a fan of that idea, because then you can either change them, whatever, but now you need two different ones. Anyway, that's the way it's been designed. That's the way we'll build it. And there it is, swash plates on, the pitch links are all clipped onto the servo horns. So yeah, things are really starting to take shape now. What's next? Oh, we do our main rotor hub assembly and the blade grips. It looks pretty standard to me. Anyway, so that's on page 25, so that means we should have a bag 25. Let's do it. In your kit, you're going to get 2 sets of dampers that go inside the head. So you got your standard 80 Shore O-rings that will go in there, but they've also provided these other dampers. It says POM in there. It actually stands for polyoxymethylene. Yeah, I think that's it. It's a very hard engineering type plastic. It's yeah, super hard, super rigid, and the manual actually says, you know, if you want a really stiff head, don't ever, it says don't fly below 1100 RPM. So, you know, if you're going to put this in, you want high head speed, you want a rigid helicopter that you can just throw around like there's no tomorrow. I'm not that type of flyer. I actually like low head speed. I don't mind cranking it up as well, but when I crank it up, I like to do speed runs and things, not any sort of hard 3D work. I'm not there yet. I hope to be one day, but I'm not there. Anyway, so I'm going to put in the 80 Shore O-rings, and and then these other 2 smaller O-rings there to go on the POM dampers. We won't be using those. But everything else goes in pretty much the same as any other build I've done. An axle that we put through there, we put on 3 of these on one side and 3 on the other. And then it's just a matter of squeezing them into the head like so, which surprisingly is going in really easily. I normally have to fight with these things a little bit, but they are actually going in quite well. Anyway, but that's it. Just basically just get them to the point where everything's sort of seated in place, and then when we put the blade grips on and we tighten them up, it will squash the O-rings right into the head itself. So yeah, that's the job done. So remember when we did the tail, that the larger ID goes to the inside. So I've just put that just to test it on the shaft, and it gives it a really good wiggle, which shows me that's got the larger, yeah, and that one's smaller, so that one goes to the inside. I've just put some grease on my thrust bearing, or as they call it here, the axial bearing. And as Carl's little tip that I've shown you in another video and also in this video is when you put them in, just put your driver on the inside, drop this down from the center, so that helps you get it set in place. Remember, the thrust washer goes with the open side of the cage facing outwards towards the blade itself. So I'm just going to force that down in there. It's not going in quite easily, but anyway, yep, there it is. That's all sat down. Put this back through the center, drop this in. That drops in nicely. There's the other side. That goes in. And then we have a washer, which is in this other bag. There's our main rotor head all finished. So that was pretty straightforward to put together. But one thing I'd like to point out when you're doing this, it's another thing that I think they could have done a lot better in the manual, is in between the blade grip and the head block itself, there is like a stepped washer that goes in between the O-rings and the seal bearing that's on the inside of the blade grip. Now, one side is definitely different to the other. So one side it's like curved out and the other side's like got a step in it. Now, if you use this on a laptop, you can zoom right in and you can say, oh yeah, I can see which way it goes. But if you print this out, you've got no way that you're going to be able to see that. So I think they should have put a little bit of a note in there. I know in the M4 Max, there's very similar washers that go in and they actually describe which way they go. So that's an improvement they could definitely make to the manual. But yeah, everything else went in absolutely fine. Let's go on to the next bit. So we're up to page 26 where we are assembling what OMP calls it the swash plate driver arms. I'm used to calling them washout arms. I think there's other names for them as well. Doesn't really matter. They're basically the arms that go onto the head block that stabilize everything on the swash. So they look very, very straightforward to put together like any other build. It's basically a matter of putting in some bearings, some little spacers and washers and a few other bits and bobs. And the one thing that they say here is make sure when you put the bolts in, and this is pretty common as well, is that when you put them in, they actually go into the head block like this, but they also act as a clamp, so it squishes the head block together. And then there's the bolt that goes through the center through the main shaft, and it says, you know, put the Loctite on, but don't tighten them up. So just put it on and just basically do it in until it just stops, and then don't do it any further. Put the head on and then do it up later. There's our main head block all done. So once again, I found a couple of things in the manual that they definitely could have done a lot better with. So the first one is the actual aluminium arms that connect to the head block. There's no indication in the diagram on what they call number 2, swash plate driver joint assembly. There's no indication of where the OMPHobby actually goes. So it's just blank there. And so what I did is when I initially put it together, I thought, oh yeah, you know, there was nothing there, so I put it on that side. And then when I went to the next step and then I started putting it onto the head block, it was on the wrong side. And I was like, oh no. And then, yeah, it just, you can't put your helicopter together looking like that. It's got to look right. So anyway, so I pulled it all back apart and fixed it all up, and that's all good. The other thing is that there is a washer that goes on the inside there. It is a domed washer, so it's flat on one side, domed on the other. Make sure that the flat side goes onto the aluminium block. And apart from that, everything else was pretty straightforward. So I think if we go to the next step, we put it on. So it should just be a simple matter of put this on, make sure it's lined up with the main shaft. We'll turn the swash around so our balls are in line, and we'll just give this a nice push on that side. For the tight. Oh, they're very tight. So that's that, and then it should just be bag 27. I love it when they, bag 27 contains 1 bolt and 1 nut. Like, wow, why didn't you just put that in with the other bag? Anyway, that's what they've done. So this should just be, we'll grab our driver in here. So one side will have a little notch. I'm gonna have to get my torch so I can see this. That side's all smooth and that side's got an edge in it. So this side's gonna where our nut will go. So I'll just put that in there. I'll give this a little wiggle around. We'll put the nut on this side and we'll do it up. And then because of the shape of the aluminium in the head block, it just holds the nut in place and then we can do it up. Let's do it up nice and firm. So that's that. And now we get our 2.5mm driver the same, and we do up the washout arms, or what do we call them? The OMP don't call it that, they call it the swash plate driver arms. There we go, so that's nice and firm. This is nice and firm. There we are. There's all our main rotor assembly all done. So what does page 28 have for us? Ah, okay. So, oh gee, we're just about out of bags here, people. So page 28 is the pitch links between the swash and the blade grip arms. Now, like the ones here for the servos, they have a specific ball joint socket on each end of the threaded part, which, as I said before, I'm not a big fan of having two different parts. They should be interchangeable, but anyway, this is the way that they've done it. So we will work with what we've got. Oh, I think I see why they've done that now too. It's because they're threaded, and as you probably know with these, they're essentially turnbuckles. So one's a left-hand thread, one's a right-hand thread. So what OMP have done is that they have pre-threaded the ball joints, which, yeah, it's probably not a bad idea, because what that means is it's a lot easier to put them on if they're already threaded, where a lot of other ones, they don't have thread in there, and you really got to make sure you get it right and cut the thread on there. So anyway, these were the F side. So the F side goes onto the non-tapered side of the shank. And that is a counterclockwise. And then the Z ball links go on the tapered part of the shank, and it will be clockwise. So yes, I see that they're definitely easier to put on than others, but I'm a big fan of standardization. I do a lot of that in my day job, where we try and keep everything as the same as possible, so you don't have to worry about having a gazillion different spare parts. So yeah, but anyway, this still works fine. So we'll just wind these on, and they say it needs to be 53.8. Where on earth do you get 0.8 from? I'm a little bit dumbfounded by these funny measurements that they put in here. Why couldn't they round it off to the nearest 0 or 0.5? Anyway, we will press on. That'll do me, close enough. So they need to go on. Oh, that's a bit unusual. Okay, so the side with the taper coming down, it needs to go on the underside. So I'm going to put those on. So remember, where it says OMPHobby, that needs to go out. So that's the smaller side of the ball joint. So we don't want to try and push the smaller side over the ball. I'm going to use some pliers this time to put that on to save my fingers a little bit. And it's always a really, really good idea whenever you do this sort of thing with pliers, that you use a one that doesn't have any serrations in there, because you can scratch your all of your components really, really easily. So it looks like there's only one job left to do now, and that is to fit the anti-rotation bracket, which is on page 29. So this looks fairly straightforward. Oh, there's also our, what appears to be the receiver mount. It looks exactly very similar to what the M4 Max came with. So it's got M6 engraved on there. And yeah, so basically we have this aluminium bracket, which goes, we'll put the anti-rotation bracket on first. So that's just a matter of using these countersunk screws that it came with, 1.5mm driver, a little bit of Loctite. You know, one of the things I really wished I had when I was a child, my dad bought me Lego, and I really liked Lego. Lego was really fun. But the thing that some of my friends had that I always wanted was Meccano, or the Lego Technics, for those of you who are probably familiar with that. Helicopters are just like those, in my opinion. They're full of all these cool little parts, and they make things go round and round, but unlike those kids, these things fly. And that is that. Anti-rotation bracket is on. The rest is just putting the battery and everything else in. So it's, you know, I just need to put on my carbon push rod, which you saw me build yesterday. It's not yesterday on the video, but that's okay. So I'm going to fit this now, and then I'm going to do all my wiring, and I will come back to show you what it looks like when I'm done.
Близняк.
Wow, what a ride. That auto touched the ground a little bit hard, took out the tail blades, but you know, brought it down safely. Unfortunately, I had another set of tail blades sitting at home, but this heli, I tell you what, you know, we normally talk about, if you haven't heard, 580s seem to be that size, that sweet spot that everyone seems to love. It's not too big, it's definitely not too small, it's just a really, really nice size. And my Kraken 580 has been my go-to. It's the one that I take everywhere, and it always puts a smile on my face whenever I fly it. Well, I'm here to tell you today it's been replaced. This is my new medium-sized go-to. The 615mm Ultimate blades, they leave such a nice floaty feel to this heli. It's got such a great sound to it. It's just a real pleasure to fly. Low head speed, high head speed, it doesn't matter. It just rips when you crank it up, and when you put it down 1300 RPM, somewhere around there, it's just beautiful. It's just so graceful through the air. Really, really nice, super stable. As usual, just a standard setup on my Spirit Flybarless controller, and it just behaves so nicely. I love the canopy on this thing. This canopy, not only does it look really good, as you can see, but it's got this rubberized sort of feel to it. It doesn't feel like a lot of canopies when you go to take them off. They feel really rigid, and if you were going to flex them too much, they feel like they're going to break. Not this. This is really super flexible. It almost feels like rubber, and super easy to take on and off. One of my favorite things about some of these newer helis, especially the Eel Goblins, where you have these quick release battery trays, you don't have to take the canopy off. I was starting to think, oh, that's going to be my helis going forward, but this thing is no trouble at all. It's just simply a matter of just pulling these, and it just pops off, and it is super easy to get back on. It is no trouble at all. And the battery tray just slides in and out really, really nicely. Very positive locking system on it as well. There's no worries it's going to fall out. Scorpion powertrain in this, can't fault it. I've always had great success with Scorpion. But this is the first time I've ever done a 10S, as I mentioned at the start of the video. So it is a very, very nice weight. So the Bonker 10S battery that I've got for this, it does not seem to lose any power in it at all. Even when I've consumed just about my whole battery, it just holds voltage really, really well. I'm really, really glad the change that I've made to Bonker recently. They make fantastic batteries. But look, the 150 amp ESC, can't kill it. The governor is rock solid in it. I'm not using Flybarless governor at all. So yeah, can't recommend the ESC enough. The other thing I really, really like is the KST half height servos that I've got in this as well. They're spec'd up quite well. They hold, and you can really throw this thing around, and it just holds no problem at all. But because they're half height, they're a bit lighter, but it just makes that installation so much easier because you've got all of this room, especially to route wiring, and you can see everything a lot better as well. So I can't recommend them enough. If you're going to think about a full-size servo, think the half-height ones. They're actually really, really good. Like all of the OMP stuff that's coming out these days, these anti-corrosion coatings that they're putting on all of their bolts now, magic. I mean, I put all this together. As you can see, my helis just live in the shed. That they don't get any sort of real special treatment, and you don't have any rusting going on. All of my other helis, I've always put a very, very light coat of anti-corrosion fluid on them so they don't corrode, but not this. Just put it together and it just, yeah, it stays happy. Look, the build was great. It's one thing I've found with OMP is that they're just getting better and better and better all the time. So every time I build a new OMP model, like a new generation one, they just get better. Their manuals are getting better. Their build process is getting really top notch. So you can't go wrong there. I really, really rate their build experience on this. Everything else was really good. Look, if I could only say one bad thing about this, and this is not a fault of the heli itself, because I got one of the early ones, this was serial number 300, it actually had one of these side frames. It's supposed to have a hole on the other side where the belt tensioner is. It didn't have a hole in the side frame. And when I asked a question about this online and people said, oh, you've got the wrong one. And I put the both side frames together and I said, oh, have I? And they said, oh, well, just take it back to your dealer and they'll swap it out, which I know Mad for Heli would have without a question. But I just decided, look, I'll just drill the hole myself. So, you know, that is the only thing. I was probably just one of those customers where it might have been made on a Friday afternoon or something happened to the manufacturing machine and it just went through without a hole in it. I haven't heard of it happening to anybody else, but you know, if that's the only bad thing I've got to say about this, this is really, really worth your consideration. I love it. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. You know, I can't say it's perfect, but I tell you what, it's pretty damn close. Look, I really can't say much else. Buy with confidence. Thanks again, Mad for Heli, for supporting this build. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you for the next build very, very soon. Catch you later.